Can hear you.
Hi, Lindsay.
Hi.
Oh, good. We got a lot of people here.
You didn't get to eat yesterday or today.
No,
He brought it home. He brought it with him.
That's right, she's home. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. It's too hot in here, open the door, but yesterday I did a pretty much a 1 hour presentation on IRT, item response theory, how that is involved in testing tests. And that technology can be used for patient-reported outcomes. We can design our own. It can be used for education research. Is the test testing what we think it's testing? And we have lots of data, we've been in institutions for long enough to collect thousands and thousands of data that we could use to evaluate our courses. The item, the heart of this thing is called an item person map, where the people on the left-hand side are high achievers or the other thing, low achievers. And then on the right-hand side of the map is the fact that some items are harder at the top and the easy items are at the bottom. So the high achievers tend to answer more items correctly, and the low achievers tend to not. So this opens up the possibilities of evaluating, like I said, our curriculum. And what I'd like to do, and there's only one door here, and I'm not going to let anyone else until they come up with a couple research ideas. Anyway, I think that this is low-hanging fruit for us. There's all kinds of things we can do to find out if our practitioners and providers are graduating with the necessary competencies they need to be licensed. Beyond that, we kind of turn everyone loose, and we hopefully don't hurt anyone, but maybe even help a lot of people. So I don't know, Kurt and I worked together on IRT occasionally. I worked on it for 10 years. It's you can get into the thicket of this as much as you want, but the point is, hi, Chris.
I found you.
I haven't seen anywhere. So, well, we discussed it that Kurt and I, that there's so much data that we could use to find out if we're training what we think we're training. And we can improve our tests based on what we find. But right now, just seeing what we're doing or how we're doing would be amazing, and wouldn't require much to get going on that if you're willing or if you're interested in doing that. And I know that dentistry is doing a big curriculum change, as I understand it. The thing is, you can evaluate whether the curriculum is picking up training your people to the same competencies as the old curriculum was. Because you have a lot of baseline data from the old curriculum. Is the new curriculum graded, or is it a pass-fail?
Pass-fail.
Well, that's a challenge. But,
but one of the things we've sort of talked about internally was you still have to have a number, a score, to determine whether someone is pass-fail. So
that's right.
We actually have that raw data.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of talked a little bit, correct me if I'm wrong, Monica, about sort of tracking both, especially during the first couple of years. Sure.
Yeah, the tests, you have to know what the tests are in order to make sure that they pass the threshold for passing. So it's since yesterday, has anyone thought of any research ideas that you'd like to apply for your division? And I will add that I'd like to see IPE kinds of things if we can pull them together around a certain patient set you know, and I talked about veterans, traumatic brain injury patients. We all have a lot of capability in those areas. Kelly, maybe, I don't know, concussion work, and we can apply this technology to medical testing as well. So if you think about it, medical testing is just another test with a bunch of questions. Can they stand, or have cognition, do they hear, or can they orient themselves? And we can kind of stack those in a way that show us which ones are most important, or if we didn't cover yesterday, which ones are introducing the most variability. So there's some tests that just are scattering our data, and we'd like to be able to identify those or tighten them up. That makes sense.
So we have an opportunity, Chris, we could talk about this. SOMA has received a large HRSA grant that looks under the guise of behavioral health, but one of the big areas is looking at substance use disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of aligns quite nicely with the state of Arizona has put out a charge. It's not really a mandate, but a strongly encouraged charge to all of the academic medical centers who train prescribers in writing for controlled substances to follow what is now a state curriculum, which was developed through a consortium of universities in Massachusetts. So there's going to be several states that adopt it, and really nice. Many of us from ATSU went to a meeting that the state hosted last year to learn about the curriculum, but there's going to be a lot of metrics that have to be developed as a result of what we'll be creating as an IPE curriculum across disciplines here on our campus, with I think a bigger goal of using modules that could become a model that other academic institutions could then implement there. So we have to, so the testing and validation can happen on many, many levels. You know, we talked yesterday about like, how do you know that that your items are actually gathering the information you need on
The level of
level
ability.
that you are looking for, right?
Mhm.
So I think this is something we could actually be developing in real time as we're actually
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah.
And then develop the plans for some of these after the fact.
Yeah, that's nice.
So that's that's the big example I thought of yesterday after you had asked us to think about one,
Mm-hmm.
because it is IT, would involve a lot of us on it.
Yes, that sounds great. Where can we plug in on that? Is that too early to start?
So Dr. Bora, maybe we should connect.
Yeah, with Dr. Bora, I don't think, and these 2 months.
Lise is on this call too,
Lisa
so
McCoy
Lise,
is here, yes. Yeah, Lisa McCoy, Alicia, you want to speak to that?
Sorry, go ahead and ask me again.
can't hear you.
You're muted.
Am I muted still?
You're not muted, but you can hear me.
She's not muted.
Can you hear me now?
Do we have her volume turned off?
Try.
Oh, we are. Where's the top on here?
Yeah, there you
Talk
go.
now?
Sorry, Lise, hold that thought.
Talk now?
Well, it's still saying.
No.
No, I'll do that one.
Switch to the speaker.
Could you hear me now? There we go. Can you hear me now?
I think still an X.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, this isn't on the job or just seems to be on?
Anybody?
It should be on, huh? It says it's on.
You can hear us. Full day.
Hi.
No.
No, this isn't on.
Any PhDs in
Hello, hello.
here? Do we have a genius?
Hello,
in the-
hello.
Yeah, let me switch back. We're gonna go get the shot.
Well, let me catch you up on another thing, so we get these sort of. I talked to a friend of mine from the University of Arizona, taking a 1-year sabbatical in Europe, now he's in Mexico, and I was going to Australia to teach. His thing is ecological momentary assessment. Anybody heard that? Okay, what it is, it involves progress, by the way. It's a diary set in your phone that reminds you every night to fill out a few questions about your condition. And through that, we can instruct people continuously over time. That's the way it's done now. Heard we talked about this earlier, with an app on your cell phone. So what that does is that gives us more items to track, and we can actually correlate those with other indicators, paper and pencil tests or whatever. So I was thinking about, I don't know much about dental, fear of dentists, but I think it might be something that would be something we could look into. At least we're just. Yeah.
Hello. Hey there. Hello. Oh, where did you go? Oh, yeah.
Oh, here's one.
Okay.
Yeah, have a seat.
Anyway, here? Yeah, it's over here. Thank you. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to help.
Lisa's frozen.
Oh, she's driving.
So anyway, you can connect with, Laura is the PI on my grant.
Is it not? Hello, how are you?
Looks like it is.
I'm not.
You want to help on my channel?
Oh, he's not. I wish. I do for you.
Right now on here, right here, she's muted herself. She's a little.
Yeah, and she unmuted
And still didn't do it.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
No.
okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
So,
Yeah, thank
so like, most patients, we like to get in early on the planning, what kind of data we like to collect for planning purposes, so that we can get on the other end. So,
That little, Lisa's microphone over there is muted. Did you?
Oh, down there, that's a good question. So we're not.
Yeah, we're not.
Lisa, can you unmute your microphone?
Yeah, she did.
Oh, yeah.
Hello?
There.
Can we hear, can you say something?
I'm having technology
Still not
problems.
working. Okay. Sorry. And this is turned up.
Yeah, this is.
this is my fault because I curse.
Ah, for this room, or just for this
Just
room?
for me.
Ah.
Maybe the person is.
I can roll call it.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
She'll have to type if she didn't ask.
It's gonna type into the Zoom chat.
Lisa, you can type into the Zoom chat.
If you want, or you can.
Yeah, we're frozen.
Sorry.
Sorry,
Thank you.
I'll call them about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, okay, so Chris was just kind of filling me in on that when that was going to occur and what we can, how we can get started on the assessment. Any other things? How about dentistry specifically? Or Barbara, you're here. Anything, surveys?
One thing we can do, and this would be just a massive effort, does that grant address the core competencies? Does it, if you could look to see how well we're measuring the core competencies, to what degree they overlap, we've never looked at that before. Using a factor analytic model, and then look at that using IRT. that would be fascinating.
What are the
To see
questions?
how well we measure each of those. So,
No, go ahead.
pause it.
What are the questions?
That's a good question.
What are the research questions for the grant? We're developing,
It's a workforce training.
we're developing curriculum for.
Hello.
Wow, the problem was there was this
Yeah,
microphone was
we
muted.
tried to unmute it before it wouldn't go.
Oh, okay.
All
We
right.
can hear you
We
now.
can hear
Liz.
you.
Hi, everybody.
Yay,
Yay.
what's the little thing?
What was the question?
The objectives of the grant.
What are the questions that are being asked in the grant?
Okay, so we are going to be researching the effect of training providers and CHCs on their ability to better integrate healthcare. And we're going to be also training students and faculty on these same competencies. And with questions about also opioid use disorder and well-being of physicians and trainees. Those are the other two domains. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, good. Yeah, there might be, I think Barbie showed me some teamwork questionnaires. And there may be some things out there that already exist, but there may be, maybe they need to be modified for our purposes.
Yeah, there's a tool set that's recommended now by the National Center in Minnesota that covers both practice and education, because we're nationally building a big data set for interprofessional education, particularly, but also practice, trying to get people to use the same data collection approaches so that they can feed into this large data set that's evolving at the National Center at the minute. So a lot of our interprofessional efforts are using those tools at the moment. So that gives you capacity to draw longitudinally as well, for particularly for students, if we're consistently using those. So for practice end of things, it's the AHRQs and some of the short form 36s and the ICAS with pre-post retrospective, which is probably what you were thinking about there, Kurt, as you were talking about the competencies. And
That's what we've been using.
yeah, so yeah, and ICAS is the recommended tool for certain things, but then there's a team, ACE 15 is a team-based evaluation tool that's again the nationally recommended tool to use. So there are some that actually would help us, and then you could connect that work to the National Centre and become a National Centre reporting centre so that you can actually fuel your data into the bigger data set. So there's really good ways to take what could be small scale somewhere and contribute it to a large scale project, or take a large scale project and make quite a significant dent in the national data as well.
Does the ICAS touch on all four?
It does.
Outcomes?
Yeah, and it's valid as an overall score, and as the individual component scores are equally valid to measure change in the student. We're a little bit concerned in the interprofessional world at the minute about a potential ceiling effect, but we're kind of exploring that at the minute because people are concerned that their students all seem to be doing better. And they're worried about that, even though the intent is for the students to do better, but they're cautious about. So we're looking at that larger data as it's arriving in now to see if it's, you know, just to reevaluate it and rethink it and make sure that the change that we're seeing in the students are changes that we're doing. So we used it here recently with some programs that weren't looking at all of the competencies deliberately, so that we should see a bigger shift in the competencies we're addressing and not as much of a shift in the competencies that we're not, even though there's overlap. So there's a lot of people now investing in that type of work to be able to do some increased examination of ICAS. So that's something that we could do as well if your project's
Oh, here
focused
she's
on
got it.
one piece or another. Yeah, that's it.
Gonna say we have.
I would say after yesterday, you can see the hazards of grading your own. Better to go with some. My stupid one that I made. But it's better to go with something that's already developed. Maybe it has a ceiling effect, but we can find that.
Yeah, and that's kind of as it's rolling out on a much bigger scale now, people are able to do more because there's more data coming in.
I think there's going to be an interesting challenge and maybe an opportunity here is to try to measure integration. That's a big outcome of the graph. But, what does that mean actually? How do you know after 5 years that we attained that? So that's, I think, going to be
Is that
something.
workforce integration? Or
Yeah.
minority?
Well, but it's also, but it's that, you have this skill set that translates into actionable change and in the behaviors of people who work at the CHC and patient outcomes.
I guess that starts at the end in mind. If you think you're going to get better integration, what will that look like in the clinic? And then work back from there to what you need to measure. So if we haven't thought about what it looks like in the clinic, then don't know what to measure. But
and we are doing a baseline measurement of integration. So there's a tool to measure that. And we're asking the CHC partners to do that.
It's a big job.
Yes.
Who's showing something?
Oh, that's Lee.
That's Lee showing the collaboration, integration core descriptions. That's from Samsung.
It's a 6-level scale.
And we're asking our CHCs to do the baseline assessment correctly.
That's correct. We're going to do a baseline and then annually see if there's any change.
Great. Kelly, anything from that you see?
No, I think this is all very interesting. I just don't know how it would integrate in health professions where I don't know. I'm just not seeing a connection with how this would relate.
What, the item response stuff or this particular stuff?
Just this particular, the ICAS. We talk a lot about core competencies, but when we're talking about core competencies, we're thinking about health informatics, IPE, patient outcomes, DBT.
That's what I was
so the core professional attributes.
Yeah, so the healthcare competencies, which are slightly different than our CPAs, but somewhat aligned.
But what about your testing data and the process that you all teach? Are those data for review to evaluate your
So we don't
tests?
test our students. In athletic training, all of our students are first professionals, so they're all licensed healthcare providers. We focus a lot more on theory, and I think where more of our interests lie are on active learning strategies. So knowledge translation and making sure that the information being communicated to students is effectively changing their behavior.
How do you measure that change in that behavior?
Good question. We'll let you know.
It's on you.
Holy Grail.
Yeah, it is the holy grail.
But I think that applies to all of us, right?
So that does for sure. But some like the CHC training, that's just phenomenal. It's just we're not integrated in the CHC. So.
Related to this would be looking at the active learning itself, how that improves the curriculum.
Yes.
I am not sure exactly where is the baseline and what is the baseline. Like it's some, and we're drifting more and more toward active, but it wasn't all passive to begin with. Just somewhere along the way, we change. And the subject matter basically remains the same, but the mode of delivery keeps drifting, so to speak, and again, more active. But kind of approaches where we have more and more video being shown, but yet the classroom time is there as well. But I don't know, it's not really a well-designed study. It's kind of all over the place. I don't know where the starting point is and then the point.
Do you use the same tests more or less consistently with the same some of the same items?
To a degree, or at least we can find out which are the items utilized repeatedly versus new items. But no, let's say the majority is reused.
Real interesting.
So we do have the data on the exams. So the long ways back.
See if it's changed as you've evolved.
Yes, it would be one.
Yeah, it's not a really clean convention, but it's still
No, it's
program evaluation almost.
Right, it's more almost like observation. These certain different things. We could tabulate these different things. How many videos were there, how long they were, how many active sessions, and what kind of, but different faculty use this. It's very, very because we ask them verbal questions. Fully, we present next week something on calcium. Students are given 3 different genetic situations. We asking them to write a vignette, an example of these conditions, and write a couple of questions themselves. So maybe it's constructing everything from ground zero, just having a basic understanding of calcium, vitamin D, or other vitamin things they have to build it. So involving type of students. So it's one example, but most of the we could also somehow calculate this.
Yeah.
Very involved ones versus very lightly active.
But I think there's large potential to look at qualitatively. You know, we've been talking about large quantitative data sets, but I would hate to miss the opportunity to collect any type of data qualitatively, you know, to see if these active learning strategies are increasing learner engagement, learner motivation, and then does that translate into better outcomes?
That's really good.
Because we could look at the board scores come out a couple of years later, debate, maybe some other outcome measures, clinical outcome measures.
One of the issues that came up for us was analyzing qualitative data and coding responses in the software available to do that. And we're still kind of looking at that. So
I would love to have a conversation.
I would love to have a conversation with you.
We all have this need, so how do we get support from that?
In vivo.
Yeah.
So we're all using different.
Well, I mean, the principles are
principles
essentially
same, yeah.
the same.
You're not going to find a software that codes for you. They're more just the data management.
But how do you get that software?
We purchased ours through several internal grants, and we purchased ours through, mostly through internal grants. The way we purchased our software. We have one right now that we're just submitted an external grant, small external grant requesting some software.
But that's a great conversation. You know, 7 years ago, there was a call out from research support about potential software and equipment that was needed. And at the time, there wasn't a large enough need for some type of qualitative software. But if we're all talking about qualitative analysis and we put forth that there is a need, then hopefully they might be more willing to support institutional places.
There actually is the in vivo software exists on computers in the research lab.
What research lab?
Yeah.
Which one?
The interdisciplinary research
okay.
lab. The only rabbi. Sorry.
I'm like, where is it?
There are others.
Somebody where you 45.
Oh, sorry.
It's
First.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if we could download it and we had a license, institutional license.
Well, yeah, it exists in that space. Those are individual licenses. institutional license for it, but it does exist in that space, so anybody can go and use that in the
I got an email from the university earlier this week asking if I was the one who owned the license for it. I was like, no.
internet. For Invivo?
Yeah, somebody was trying to figure out who owns the license for it.
Yeah.
Now you
Well, that
know,
would be
now you
PT.
know. PT, there you go.
Well, I'm going to talk in a couple weeks more about ecological momentary assessment. But the idea that could be qualitative, And in fact, I think for some professions, qualitative is more important because we don't know why they work or how they work or how well they work. A lot of it is consumers interacting with the treatment in some way. So I'd like to know more about that too.
Kurt's dying to get into research.
We love that.
Kurt started his life with qualitative research, and then he learned his lesson.
I mean, I think there's opportunities for some mixed methods as well.
Yes.
So not just using one versus the other. I think looking at opportunities where you can take and pair that data to explain something a little bit more in depth and more thoroughly.
Yeah, Kurt found really
You love it more than you used to.
qualitative. Right. Kathy, you want to say anything about funding? Because I would like to get kind of give grant angle on this.
So most funding for education research comes from the individual areas, professional agencies like the PT or OT, whatever. There is a foundation called the Spencer Foundation that funds small research, education research oriented grants. They're very nebulous in terms of what they'll fund. The biggest, I guess, biggest drawback for us is that they fund people whose profession is in education research. So in other words, people who are in departments of education, that kind of thing, but that doesn't mean they wouldn't entertain. We have applied once for them, didn't get funded, and that was March of the end.
I've had some people from there.
Yeah, and they fund, I mean, it's basically, they don't really have any focus areas, like it's supposed to be out of the education field. So it can be anything that they deem useful in the field. So, but yeah, each individual, all of the different professional organizations, most of them offer some kind of educational research grant. How big they are or what they are varies a lot.
So if we had a center for health education research, would we have a better shot?
You'd
This
have
is my real motivation.
maybe, but you'd have, I mean, the big players in education research are NSF, which weren't, no.
We're out of our reach.
Out of our, kind of out of our, yeah, out of our capabilities. And not our focus really. So, and a lot of research, the problem with education research, if you start looking around, it's really a lot of it's geared toward K through 12. It's STEM research and that kind of stuff. So it's hard to filter out, what you really want, which is us. But the Spencer Foundation is one. Or you just put in one for the PT, the professional PT organization. We put in one in ATAs. So,
what about AHRQ?
Oh, aren't you?
Sorry.
Well, it would be nice to have that center, but it's then we're gonna look at who is in there and what is their expertise.
Yeah, for us, yeah, even if we had a center, we're not going to be, we would not be competitive for a center grant of any kind. We could be part of it. And that's really where we usually come in for these bigger center things or whatever. It's where we're part of it, not it.
Subcontract.
Yeah.
But it's good to know because a lot of us have colleagues at other bigger institutions.
Absolutely.
To let them know
we have a unique niche, and a lot of them are interested in that as part of their overall thing. But as a primary, not so much. Other than, like I said, the organizations.
I don't know, as everybody's talking, I was thinking about looking at some numbers, and Kurt knows how to do this, like small projects, sort of cross-sectional study about what our students are doing. So we have this idea, right, that our students are going out there and changing the world in community health center work. But I haven't seen anything that we've actually produced that says they are actually doing that. We have some numbers about where they go, like immediately after school. I mean, the dental school does, but then we don't really know what they do. And so it's sort of like, well, we have this model and we've had it, and we say that we're doing this, but we have absolutely no data to prove that it works, right? That we've trained these kids in all the disciplines to go out and change the world. So I know that's like a big question, but it's really kind of the essential question to me. It's like, is what we plan to do working? Like by putting all these kids in community health centers, do we change the outcome that they stay in community health centers? Or maybe they stay for 3 or 4 years and then other kids come in and do that. But we really have zero data longitudinally to say that the whole ATSU model and working with community health centers does anything.
We do have
So, I mean, but we're not publishing it like,
no,
we
publish
that's
it. Oh, there's a difference between having it and publishing it.
If you have it and you don't publish it, it's like you never did it, right?
Okay. I was gonna say,
So that's my thing, is like, I'm thinking that from an educational standpoint, wouldn't it be nice if this group could figure out ways that we could publish outcomes that show that our model works? Because, you know, we keep making more schools and now we're gonna make more colleges, but it's like, if we don't have any data to say that we're actually doing what we think we're doing.
Yeah. And that reflects back on the program. I mean, whatever your graduates are doing, is the program preparing them for that or something else?
So the closest to that is the results out of the HRSA grades.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whether it gets published or not is another thing, but.
Well, so to that point, okay, so after we started, you know, after I said, oh, we're going to put all these kids in community health centers, and everybody said, you can't do that, and they won't learn, and blah, blah, blah. And then CODA said, okay, you can do it. Now it's an actual requirement. So you actually have to do community-based learning. Like, you actually have to do it.
Right.
But there still is not a whole lot. There's like little articles about community-based learning and what it does or what it doesn't do. But as, you know, the model for putting people in community health centers and then seeing what do they do later, that would be a great longitudinal study to say, like, well, and maybe we find out that some of our kids go and then they don't stay. We don't really know. We kind of know. The university sends out they send out a survey, right, from every year. And right, yeah. It kind of says, where are you? What are you doing? But they're like, yeah. But it has a terrible response rate.
Well, Anita Franklin works in research, she tracks all that, and she tracks them down. So even if they don't respond to the survey, she finds out where they are.
So then how do we access that data
Ask
set?
her. I mean, you know, you have to know what you're asking for, but yeah.
The other problem is it's just numbers, because like, I'm sure it is for other disciplines too, but definitely in ours, it's compounded by the loan forgiveness program. You know, you go and stay there for so many years, you know, and I'm wondering what's the bigger incentive, quite frankly.
Sounds like the mixed method study.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe that's enough. So what? So say kids go for 4 years, get their loans paid back, medical done, whatever it is.
Is that wrong?
So what? Because the next kids are coming out and they're going to fill their spot. So maybe you constantly have this rotation. And so maybe that impacts access to care for as long as we're teaching those kids. And maybe they don't have to stay there forever. In fact, if they did stay there forever, where would our new kids coming out go? Right? So
But the community, one of the things I have experience working in rural areas in hospitals, and the problem was that every 3 years, the physicians and the also, they left, and then new came in, but they were very green. So the community suffers a lot. And so the community, I lived there, and it was, I was in the rehab department, but the same, and the same hospital, there were all the clinics, second, third floor. So our patients were from those patients from physicians who came and went all the time. And that was very bad. That was detrimental.
And then the question really is beyond just do they stay in a CHC, but
are they still continuing to serve in underserved areas in other ways?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not
Yeah,
just.
they don't have to
it's
just
not
do
just
CHC, right, sure.
CHC being the
Right.
only place where you can serve underserved.
Sure.
So how are you doing that? Are you committing to medical missions? Is there other ways that they've committed to serving the underserved that was part of what they gained?
And some of them did, because one of the physicians, I remember, he became a pastor. And then he went to somewhere in Tennessee. After the 3 years, he went somewhere in Tennessee and worked there, but he was also a pastor. And so that was kind of odd. But usually they go to the bigger cities after the 3 years.
There's one study in dentistry that has looked at whether having mission experience as a student translates into your mission orientation as a graduate. And we're such a perfect school to do that study because we have so many kids who go on mission trips, not just to the dental school, but across disciplines.
How easy is it to follow people after they leave?
They tend to be sort of like a little cohort of people who they're kind of close to their mission faculty who sort of coordinate it. They sort of stay in the loop, I think.
But you could do it as their students if you were really looking at that question, whatever program they're in, is to ask them like, we're gonna enroll you and we want to ask you questions like every year. You don't have to tell them what the questions are about, right? We're just gonna follow you. And will you commit to being in that cohort? Because if they know it up front, when they get the email that says, hey, remember when you said you would answer these questions? It's time to answer the questions. You know what I mean? As opposed to just random surveys that we all know everybody's so over-surveyed they don't want to answer. So if you got them beforehand.
To look into, if that's the approach, is, you kind of mentioned it, Qualtrics offers a text messaging feature where you can send questions via text message.
I know that.
It's pricey, so you have to have the funding to do it, but that, cell phone numbers rarely change now. So if you had students commit to that or whatever, you have their cell phone, and then you can automatically schedule text messages to text them questions, and you just text them.
Yes, because we know they actually read their text.
Because they read their text.
They don't read emails.
They don't open emails.
They don't open emails.
How pricey is that? Even if you sent a text with the link to the survey, that wouldn't cost you anything out of Qualtrics, that sends them a link to the survey. Potentially they would respond.
I don't know the current prices. It used to be like 5 cents text. But now that we finally have an institutional license, if we added the text feature on, it may be a difference.
You know, for occupational therapy, this would be very useful because our profession is biopsychosocial. So we have like our branches that are very into the medical model, and then we have the psychosocial model. We are trying, many of our students said, oh, I'm going to work in the community when I graduate, and I will work in the shelters and do all that. But it so happens they graduate, and then they go and work for a hospital because the money is better than in a shelter. I mean, $17,000 a year on a shelter, against 65 or 70 in a hospital. So they do that, and I have encountered, as a clinician, I have encountered therapists who are very well prepared in psychosocial, and work in hospitals and know very little about hospital work and OT. So even though they graduate as generalists, but they put all the emphasis. My question here would be, that would be very nice to follow them when because they are very involved in psychosocial when they are students. It's like when you are very Democrat, when you are in the university, in the bachelor's degree, and then you become a Republican when you start making a lot of money. And, it's like, so anyway, so I have seen that a lot. So it would be nice for us, because we have those two branches in our profession. And that would be so useful to know. Where do they go? What do they really do?
I think Mo's right about that you need that to capture them and have them designated to a project, because alumni surveys, let's be honest, when they read people's story, they think you want money from them.
That's right, yeah.
Well, anything alumni, they think it's about money, and that's why people don't open them. And so sending an alumni survey would never get it, but asking someone to commit to a project that you're trying to do, and can you please stick with us over X number of years beyond your graduation, and please supply us with that data because it's part of it. If you invest the students in that process and that study, then they would be more likely to allow you to collect longer term data. Yeah. And it's not all of them. You take a cohort and say we're going to follow 10% of all of the programs.
Yeah, they have to consent anyway, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe if we incentivize it somehow. And I'm thinking that if it's important to the university, maybe we need to, at enrollment, try to figure out a way to incentivize it so that we can track them the whole way through, because our whole problem has been our model works, we know it works, but our students end up in a residency or some other intermediate step, and after that we lose them. So I'm for this, and I think maybe we need a work group dedicated to this topic and then the other topic of IPE, if you think that would be good.
I don't, so Lise, as you were saying something, and I don't know if this is what you were getting at, but you just triggered a thought of, you know, you had mentioned at enrollment, and if we were to do some type of tracking method over time, maybe the issue is that we're trying to start it once they've graduated. But if we start it when they matriculate and they're just used to receiving touch points every once in a while, that when they leave, it won't be something new, it's something they're used to.
They're used to. Yeah.
Right, and unattached to financial requests.
Exactly, yeah. Well, let's do what USC does. USC sends you glossy magazines, beautiful glossy magazines, and with all the research and the new schools that they open and all the money they have. And then once a year, they send you the letter. And well, the letter, we don't read it, but at least they, you know, they communicate with us not only with the letter, asking for money, but with all the glossy magazines.
They get money from parents that are changing their ACT scores.
That's right. The millions and millions. True.
So a couple of good ideas here, please, too. That would get us started, and I think, like Lee said, that kind of working group because each one of you has a piece of the information here, I think. Do you want to send me an email to say, here's what I'd like to do, or I'm not interested, or whatever? And then I can kind of put people together, and myself, find out. Sue, is that the way to do this? I'm new at this. Kelly, thanks for coming.
Maybe send something that people just reply to.
I could send out a portrait survey.
Yeah.
Okay. How do we do it? I'm new here, so how do we do it? Email? Email. Okay.
Turning doesn't work.
I'm in a committee, they put everything in the Google thing, and I'm waiting for the email to arrive, and then they say, oh, you have the information, I didn't know. Okay.
I always need a prompt.
Yeah, me too. I don't know why. Kathy, what are you at?
I'm sponsor programs.
Sponsor, okay, an administration. Administration, yeah. I'm an OT.
Right,
I'm
right.
her. Yeah, I'm
I
OT.
read your shirt too. So.
Oh, of course.
You're advertising.
So you are the woman with the, like, we can go and get report on finding monies or try to look for.
I mean, I think everybody knows it works, but we don't.
Like you now.
I make no guarantees.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have some support here because I wouldn't know what.
We have a lot.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. Right? They identify
You know,
I even know what they don't know. Oh, they know everything. It's one of the things. Let me get something.
I know, I'm all around. None of my faculty is here, so just kind of. Someday, just pile it up.
That's how I, that's how I operate. That's all I got. We're in survival mode.
Thank you, Dr. Menke.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ATSRI. Well, you took all the other stuff out.
Same sheet as on it.
It's all right. I used to be able to see
So, yes.
You didn't tell me that I had to go to class, you know, you just told, and she was, well, I thought you knew that.
There.
But then we have all team with all the trails and all the branches.
Yeah.
We are a little bit
It
different.
is so much, I mean, for kids too.
I know, that's how
That's news to me.
Yeah. We do a lot of pediatrics. About 25% of our grads work in pediatrics. 25, that's a lot. And the other, when they are new grads, they usually work in, that's our recommendation is always work in a hospital where you really will experience a lot of different cases. After you hone your skills there, then you can go in 1 year, 2 years. That's
I
what
have
I
a niece who study OT
Yes,
up in Portland.
in Oregon.
Yeah.
Oh, Pacific University must have gone to Pacific.
I don't know, but I'm gonna see her next week, so.
It's the only school in Oregon, Pacific University.
Okay.
It's very good, but that school is one of the schools who teach a lot of psychosocial work. Because we have our, we have here, fortunately, because we are so many faculty, we have here like 3 certified in hand therapy, which is musculoskeletal, which is hospital.
Yeah.
Then we have 4 certified pediatrics. Then, and we have only 1 in psychosocial, unfortunately.
Well, I'd like to know more about that too. Because the psychosocial, another term for it, but another word to add on to that. But anyway, it's a big part of healing. Oh, I know what I was gonna say. I work with traumatic brain injury.
TBI.
Yeah, so I know you guys do too.
Oh,
Yeah.
And that for us is not exactly psychosocial. That's more related to neuro, because we do the cognition evaluation and retraining.
Yeah.
And you know that in the research room, the research lab that they were talking about today, we have, which is a brand new research, we have a driving simulator.
I've seen that.
Okay. So, get this. Young adults with autism, high functioning, how to test them in a sheltered environment first.
Yeah.
Take care of anxiety and all that in order to do the training for driving. And we have the population. The good thing with autism is that we have Arizona, we have the best, I have been in many states, so they have the best community to work with children with autism, young adults.
Yeah.
There is even an autism group that are over 60 years.
Yeah.
They are adults, older adults.
That's great.
Yeah, so we have
Be independent and, make some money and make their own way out.
Yes, well, we have to help them. I mean, in my time, they spank you and they put you in a back room and they didn't teach you anything. But now that we are more, I love my children with autism. I mean, my kids, people.
They're lovable.
Yes.
They're not sneaky.
And but some of them, well, I have been beat up and I have been bit and everything because they are on the range. We have the high functioning, but we have, no, thank you. And then we have the ones who are very low level. they get upset and, yeah, it can be, but the high functioning people, they just need more guidance. And the training for the older adults, what's not very functional, is more related to socialization and how to keep a job, how to take showers in the morning, how to wear clothes that are clean.
Yeah.
You know, the little things that
Things you take for granted.
yes, but you have to teach them because for them there's nothing wrong with that. You know, or take off from work without telling anybody, and you leave and not checking out, not telling the boss. That's for them.
There's so many things that do that could be research projects.
I know. Well,
so many.
We had 2 days ago the PI investigator. They are doing more medical research. We are the component, the functional components. They are more. He came. His name is Jim Adams. He has lots of publications about the medical journal. Jim Adams, he has a daughter, 22-year-old daughter with autism. So he's an engineer. And 32 years ago, he changed totally his research to work more in children with autism, but from the medical model related to gut bacteria.
Oh.
We have a human, I mean, there are so many publications from them, and they have NIH grants, obviously. He just raised, the families raised 1.2 million to do a follow-up with a group.
Wow.
And he came to see us.
Yeah.
And talk to us about the research we will be doing, because now I'm added to do two projects. They don't use the IRB of the, I don't know if ASU doesn't have an IRB, but they had to send it to a private company that does IRBs. So, and they added me to the 2 research projects, and we are going to start in January. And we are going to work with 50 kids from all the United States with autism, and we have right now 180 applicants.
And you're going to study gut biome?
He is going to do that. I'm going to measure the outcomes. Because the outcomes are not only physiological, are not related to diarrhea or to constipation. The actual functioning is they get the autonomic nervous system gets more calm, and they have less anxiety. This is anecdotal. We are going to try to prove it. Anecdotal. We are trying to prove it, and they get, because they are not in pain, they are not in bad mood, the behavior changes. And those families who did the biome about 2 years ago, they have seen so much progress, not only on the gut issues, but on the behavioral issues. And what we are going to do, OT, is measure that. Measure. How do we measure the baseline with new children that come into the
That's a frontier.
Yes. So I tell you, I just went there and asked this guy, how are you measuring that? You know, I'm very plain and simple. I just went there. Say,
It works for me.
yes, and then he said, well, we are doing like what the family tells us. I said, yeah, but this is more, it's good, but it's subjective. And we measure that. He said, well, what do you propose? And then I gave my proposal, and yeah, we are going to do it. So
good for you.
Yeah, I want my department.
What about TBI?
Oh, TBI is fascinating. In fact, one of my jobs many years ago, I worked in Philadelphia at the Moss Rehab. If you are interested in TBI, Moss Rehab is one of the centers of excellence for TBI. I worked there, and I fell in love with spinal cord and TBI because both of them were the centers of excellence.
Right.
So TBI, I don't know about the population here in the state.
A lot.
For sure. Yeah, younger people, older people.
Mostly younger people.
Yeah. So are they TBI or due to motor vehicle accidents, I assume? Okay.
Yeah, we thought it might be military, but it's not that much.
Well, I thought military because in El Paso, Texas, tons. Because
there.
we have 4 bases. We have, and we have the William Bowman Hospital full of TBI. And I know the DOTs who work there. Well, I mean, everybody, well, I'm from El Paso, but so in there, they have all this equipment for driving rehabilitation for those soldiers who go through the whole process of, you know, more about their behavior. And after a couple of years, they get better, they get trained on the driving.
Yeah.
But what were you thinking of TBI?
Well, yeah, do they get better? You know, that's one thing. Some are so severe that they don't improve. Some people who are comatose eventually come out of it.
Of course, yes.
And we don't want to take their organs if they're going to come out of it. So I don't know how we could detect early that there's some cognition going on.
And I'm sure we can do that. If there is a look for all the things, because I teach neuro, so for all the research neuro and everything, if we had enough money to do PET scans,
Yeah.
you know, that's the and one other thing is what we are going to do with the children with autism, measuring the autonomic nervous system, because the ANS, the autonomic nervous system, will tell us when a person is like the responses they elicit when they give you like a detector, like a lie detector.
Yeah.
What they are detecting is your heart rate, your when you hear something, you know, like the sweat glands. It measures the sweat glands. It measures a lot of things, and it's usually just a little. Have you seen when they measure the oxygen in the fingers of patients?
Yes.
That's the little equipment you use now. Before that, they put straps and for children with autism, we cannot use all that.
Yeah, right.
So it's just good.
Well, the other thing was that some osteopaths specialize in traumatic brain injuries. So I'm asking them, you're not curing the brain, what are you doing? And they said, we help them walk. We help them use their limbs. So that said to me, that might just be something, you know, about loosening joints. But I also think maybe it's reconnecting the brain to.
Without reconnecting the brain, unless it's not exoskeleton, you know.
Training the brain from the skeleton.
But the one thing is, TBI is like a real estate in New York. It depends on the area that was affected. Let's say that we have a TBI that affected, the problem with TBI is that it affects several areas. When you have a stroke, it usually affects one area and it keeps growing if you don't treat it on time. But it's one area. And the TBI is usually multi. Yeah. Okay. So with those, chances are the cognition will be affected and perhaps the eyesight will be affected.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends where it.
That's so tricky, yeah.
Well, when they come out, there are many outcome tools that you use in order to measure the abilities of the client or patient when they come out of the coma. And you make a baseline right there because you are going to do the training. Yeah. Well, it's more than that. It's a functional. OT observes, like, okay, Juan, we are going to, why don't you brush your teeth? And then he's going to get the toothbrush and then the paste, and then he's going to use the paste to put it in his mouth without the toothbrush and things like that. So then you do, it's a standardized, it is very systematic, but it's through observation too.
Still recording us.
We're recording. Okay. So, but you can do that. I mean, that's possible with TBI.
I've been to some TBI